Realtor of the Year, but the association really gives back to its members, and it's ran by us. So if anybody in here ever wants to get involved, feel free to ask any of the staff. There's lots of committees here that you guys can join, and I hope to see new faces on the board of directors because we need that input from our members. And if you guys want more classes like this, we need that feedback so we can offer it again for it. So Realtor Safety Month is the whole month. This happens to be at the end of the month, but we'll get through it. So a little bit about safety. There's been a lot of stuff in the news over the last probably 5 years, and mainly I know that because that's about how long I've had my license. I've hit year number 6 this September. And a lot of it is scary. Some of it is new that we don't really know about. But one of the biggest things is, is it a high-risk business? And it's amazing that this study was done, I think, in 2015, where they compared the real estate industry to coal miners. Now, which industry do you think is more dangerous? Coal mining for sure. I mean, you're dealing with heavy equipment, explosives, underground. We've heard those stories in the news where people get buried in shafts. But it actually came back that realtors and the real estate industry is more dangerous. And it's because we don't have as many systems in place is the only reason I can see why that would happen. And our days change every hour, every minute. Whether we're jumping in a car to go drive somewhere, or we're meeting at a house, or we're in a different building or location that we're not familiar with, that we don't have these procedures in place. I mean, how many times have you guys done, the evacuations and stuff in your school and your building when you were younger? And now, you only do that when the fire alarm goes off, everybody runs outside. So, we don't have a lot of that practice in place. So why is it risky? There's a couple of bullet points. One is, projecting that image of success. All of us are wearing the newest, latest technology, fancy jewelry, dressing to the nines. We're driving flashy cars. We project that we're successful, that we have money, and obviously people that don't have that see that as an opportunity to take. So that's one reason. Meeting unknown prospects at properties. I am guilty for this. Until I became an instructor doing safety courses in the business, somebody called me right away. Hey, come look at a property. First thing I did, jump in my car, print out the forms, ran over there, sign with me. We don't pre-qualify that person. We don't meet with them beforehand. We don't vet who they really are. It was a referral from a friend, someone that you just met at Starbucks. We don't really know a lot about that person. Working unfamiliar properties at odd hours. So I got my license in 2011. It was still, the beginning of the recession ticking back up, and there still are real properties. I mean, I went to many of them that were in really bad shape, didn't have power on, had broken windows, doors that didn't lock, all kinds of stuff on it. And I would show those properties when I didn't realize that I probably should have previewed them beforehand, made sure that they were safe, and then came back with my clients. Instead, I just showed it, and depending on what time of year it is, if you're doing it, in the late summer to fall, we have daylight savings time that changes, and now all of a sudden it's dark at 5:45 when before it made it till about 7:15, 7:30. Sitting open houses alone. This cracks me up too, as you don't ever think about it till you're on the outside of it, but you're doing this open house, trying to sell the property, like everybody's taught you, all the training classes that you've gone through, but you're sitting at it alone. You're published on the internet where the house is at. You have flags and signs directing people to where you're at. I mean, if you just think about that for a second, there's no reason why stuff doesn't happen to real estate agents. I mean, we're putting a flag out there saying, come visit my property. I'm alone. Do you want to steal from me? I mean, that's what that sign says to me now every time I see it. So keep that in mind when you're doing it, and we'll set up some plans that you guys can see. Entering vacant properties is the same. This one doesn't happen too much anymore, and that's driving with strangers. I think the industry's changed a lot now, where they tend to follow us or meet us at properties. And I think it's just everybody's got a fast-paced life now, and they're trying to keep up with that and coordinate everything. But just remember that it's easy to get distracted while you're driving. A lot of us are trying to use the GPS, make phone calls, trying to make sure that we're going to make the appointment for the open house. So remember, pull over, be safe with it, and try not to multitask. Another one is putting yourself out there so everybody can see you. If you're successful in this business, you're not a secret agent. Everybody knows who you are. They know your phone number, they know your email, and they probably know your personal residence because you've either had them over, you've had friends over, or you've sent them cards. One of the good points that I point out in our new member orientation is if you just get your license, or even if you're renewing, best thing is go onto the DOE's website and look up what that address is, because that's public to everybody, and most people have their personal residence. I'd recommend changing that to your business location, whether it's your franchise office or you rent your own office. That way, all your BRE correspondence go to the right mailbox, and that way you don't lose it in your personal mail. And if you have that disgruntled client, they're going to go to the office because that's your employment office, rather than your home address knocking on it thinking it's your business address, because some people, switch around the suite number to, or it should be apartment number or a condo number. Just make sure that's updated. And it's a really easy mail change form. I think you can even do it through the e-licensing if you log on to it. Multiple ways to contact. I said we're everywhere. Google my name online. You'll find out everything that I'm doing. I mean, especially with Facebook, social media. Just be careful what's out there. Handling clients' information. A lot of it's kind of passed off, done electronically now, which is scarier since we're not really in control of that. But all of our forms, everything is kept securely until it enters our email box. Those, as we'll probably have from our speakers, that's probably the #1 hacked, especially by real estate agents in today's era. And it's because we go to a site that we don't know, we think that we're logging in, and all of a sudden, everybody has our password. So just remember that's always one weak point to get into everything, and so far I've only seen it being email, so make sure that you're keeping track of personal information and not worrying about it. And then, believing you're not at risk. When I got my license, I was like, this will never happen to me. And yet I haven't had anything happen to me, but I'm still worried now after going through all these courses and seeing what's out there. So they did a couple more studies for it, and these cracked me up as well, is most crimes happen on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So keep that in mind. If you have that brokers open on Tuesday or Thursday, be a little bit more wary about it. And the last part, least frequently on Sunday during day hours. And the only thing I can think of is somebody's not going to rob you since they just went to church. That's the only thing I think about that. 1 out of 3 crimes happen to men, so just those guys out there that think we're macho and nothing can happen to us, it still happens. A lot of them start off as robberies and then progress on to sexual assault, murder, and farther on. But that first step, though, starts with something that somebody's just trying to steal something from you. So it could be, just breaking into your car, trying to get into your home just to take something, and then it obviously progresses from there. Guns were used after the physical force, so if you got someone that's angry that's going to touch you, or it's going to be a push or a shove, chances are it could escalate very fast. So keep that in mind as well. And so most of the attacks happen in suburbs and rural areas and not in the city. We're kind of in the middle there. I wouldn't consider us as a downtown like metro, since we are kind of a suburb of Los Angeles. So we're in that gray area where I would think stuff probably happens more here than it does in a downtown metro facility. So property showing, it's real easy to just meet with that client, especially if you're new in the business. I'd say anybody that's probably less than 5 years in the business is just dying for that lead and that client, and they'll go meet with them anywhere. Best thing you can use is the acronym CITO, is come into my office. This way your receptionist gets to meet them. If you have a nice fancy office, why not show it off? You're paying rent or you're paying something to that brokerage, so you might as well get your money's worth out of it. And that receptionist can, you can use them as your kind of barrier between people that you don't know and that you're going to meet. Have them sign in, just like you guys all signed in today. Have them sign in, put their name down, that, I'm here to meet for an appointment, what time? And you can print up any form you want, give it to the receptionist and have them do it. We've had other people that have done it where they'd actually have them present their driver's license to show who they are, and they'll just write down their driver's license number next to their name as well. And this is just some sort of identification, that way you know who they are, and there's somebody else besides you. And if you pass it on to the receptionist or a manager that's in the office, the clients don't know any different when they first meet you. So it kind of becomes routine, and that way everybody knows who we're talking to before we talk to them and keeps everybody a little bit safer. The ID cards and snapping photos is a little bit harder. I know most offices probably have some sort of camera system when they first walk in, but you want to make sure that you know who that person is as they come into that office. More on the men and women, so you guys can see the stats here for it, is that it happens to men. So don't think that just because those guys aren't going to happen to us. And then you can see it's 50-50 on how many of them view a neutral location or just go meet them randomly. So it all depends. These charts I think were done in 2016, so it may have changed a little bit, but not too much generically. So when there's a motive, there's obviously an opportunity for them to grab something or do something, there's going to be a crime. So the easiest way for that is don't let that opportunity happen. Always be alert of what's going on. Another way to do it, and most of us already do this, in all of these education courses, they like to throw out more acronyms so you guys can remember everything. This one's powder. And as I said, almost all of us, when we go out, we're doing this already when we park our car because I want to make sure my car is far enough away from another car that's not going to get a ding from somebody's door. So I'm already scanning the area for it. So I'm parking my car, I'm getting out, you're going to walk up to the property, wherever you're going, make sure it's safe. There's some great ways to do that is if you're doing like an open house, go knock on the neighbor's doors next door. Check out and see what they're doing because if something's going to happen, they're going to be the nosy neighbors that are going to know and they're going to call and say something and they probably want to know what's going on and it could be the client that's going to buy that home or it could be a relative that they can help it out. So use that as your marketing as well. Entering the property, if the door doesn't open, there's it's broken, you can't find the key box, those things, just walk away from the property and don't risk going in there. And then, reversing as you guys go back out. So more with the property showing. So this one is more of the protection on the sellers. We all know that theft tends to happen with these open houses. The best way probably is doing an open house with two people. Especially if it's a multi-floor property, because you can't have your eyes on everything. In this business, we rarely get the vacant properties. Most of the time, the client's living in it, selling it, to move up or to move out of town. So just keep that in mind. But safeguarding personal properties, making sure that stuff's in drawers and deep in drawers, not like it was on top of the dresser and you just slid it into the drawer and then closed it. Because people are going to snoop around the house, they're going to open up the drawers and just look. So if it's sitting there, they'll grab it. Pre-screening these clients as they come in. The best way is everybody has an excuse. Oh, I'm working with a realtor. Oh, I don't want to sign in the registry. They've caught onto our game. But most of them aren't qualified with a lender. So that's where you get that second person that come in. And I can tell you, you can ask any lender, they'll come out there and sit during your open house because that's free lead generation for them. And they'll sit there, they'll get their information, so it's not coming from you as the agent, because they know that we're going to call them nonstop, we're going to email them nonstop about this property. When it's passed off to a second person, they don't realize that, oh, you're still going to get that information, but it's going to come from a third party. But that's an easy way. Locking up credit cards, checkbooks, especially if they have a dresser door or a desk that's not locked. Biggest one is mail, especially vacant properties or tenants that have moved out. The mail will just stack up in there. Best thing you can do is take it inside because you don't want it to look like that property is vacant. Removing family schedules and notes. So if anybody's ever sold a single-family home in the South Bay and they have at least 1 or 2 children, you'll notice that every fridge, every wall, somewhere in there has everything that's going on in that family's daily life. Whether it's soccer practice, it's what time they're going to school, when the daycare is happening, everything is there. And it's bad to have it on the wall for the open house and everything, but when somebody is taking photographs for that property, those pictures are going online. So now everybody knows what that family's schedule is because it was on the refrigerator for that kitchen photo that was taken. So remember, take those down, especially if you're doing an open house, so people don't see all that. And lastly, the super lockbox. It's probably our greatest tool to control who comes in and out of the homes. And you can actually set different times when that property will open, and you can also have them request they only unlocks after they call you. So if you guys have any questions about that, membership here, the SelfDefense Association, can set up a lockbox for you. you should bring a lockbox. Otherwise, you can do it from your mobile app or on the Supra's website for it. So that gives you some more options for security. I wouldn't recommend using combo lockboxes since you don't really know who comes in and comes out. Having, though, the Supra, you get that notification right away via email. Probably a safety video that you guys can actually use.
Real estate professionals are in a unique position that most working professionals never face. They often share their contact information openly with others, meet unknown clients, and walk through vacant properties, to name a few. It's because of the unique nature of this business that it's critical for all real estate professionals to have a personal safety protocol in place that they follow every day, with every client, every time. And that includes with you. So, what kind of safety protocols might your real estate agent take? When meeting you for the first time, your agent might not meet you at the property right away without first having an initial meeting at the office, regardless of you or your agent's gender. You wouldn't want to meet a stranger at an unknown location, would you?
Hey, how you doing?
No. During the initial meeting, your agent may make copies of your driver's license and pre-approval letter for their records. This precaution allows the agent to keep a record at the office of who his or her clients are and a calendar of appointments. When first meeting with your agent, we'll also discuss the types of real estate you're interested in and walk you through the process. Now your agent can arrange showings, meet you at properties, and schedule open houses to help you through the biggest financial decision of your life. When viewing a property, your agent may ask that you drive separately. Please don't be offended. This is a safety precaution for you as much as it is for your agent. Not to mention you may both have appointments to go to afterward.
Hey, this is cute.
When viewing a property, you may need to sign in with your name and phone number, or show a photo ID. This is so the seller's agent knows who entered the house. If you were opening your home to strangers, you want to know who was there too. As you tour a property, your agent may walk behind you. This is not only a routine safety measure, it also allows you to see the room first and make your own impressions. And many agents won't go into attics, garages, or basements, but feel free to look around and let your agent know what you thought. If you want to see a property that's vacant,
It's got potential.
your agent may only show it during daylight hours. Vacant properties should be seen during the day when you can see what safety hazards may exist, like a loose floorboard or any defects the house may have, like mold. When showing your property or hosting an open house, before opening your home to potential buyers, your agent may ask you to board your pets and remove jewelry, family photos, credit card receipts, artwork, prescription drugs, and valued possessions from the home. This is just one way your agent is looking out for you to keep your property and belongings secure. Your agent may bring a colleague to host your open house. If there are several potential buyers walking through the home, even better to have 2 agents on hand to answer questions and keep an eye on things. Safety is an important part of real estate, and we appreciate you respecting the protocols and processes that have been put into place to keep you and your agent safe.
So just to show of hands, has anybody seen this video before? So that's what I realized, that this video has actually been out since late 2015. It was an initiative done by NAR, and you guys can see it at the bottom. It's realtor.org, so that's our National Association website. And pretty much all is, you can just search safety, and they have tons of material. This video you can download. I've seen some agents do some pretty creative stuff for it, where they'll throw it into iMovie or some sort of app and brand it with their own information in the beginning and end. And it's a great way to meet those clients beforehand. I've used it a lot with buyers, and that way, when you're sending them all the auto emails and everything, and then finally they want to go see something, this is a great way, rather than having to give them a kind of like a checklist sheet of what they're going to do that day, is like, hey, here's a video. And all of them love it. And then it was not until recently, probably, or earlier this year, they started using it with sellers. And you'll be amazed at the feedback that you get from the sellers saying like, wow, you're going to provide all these things, you're going to make sure that these people are coming in, my property feels so safe, and I didn't have to spend any money to do this video. You know, it's there free for us to download it and send it out, so just copy it and send it out. You can host it on your own website. I think you can actually embed it if you want to, because it's a YouTube video, so use that to your advantage. So I think that's all I got for you guys. So I think you guys all know who I am. You can email me, call me if you have any questions about safety. This is actually, what's nice about that video is it summarizes everything that I normally teach in a 3-hour course. So it's a 3-hour continuing education course that you guys we would offer here, but since we have free CE already through Alumni Real Estate School, there's no need for you guys to do 48 hours unless you really wanted to do that course for it. If anybody has any questions, I can answer them. Tasha?
Not a question, but I just wanted to share a quick story. When NAR put together that video, they also did some interviews from different realtors around the country. And one of our colleagues up in Silicon Valley shared a story that happened to him, and I got a lot of learning out of it. So just very, very quick, like, this guy's like 6'4". He's a big guy. And years ago, he was doing an open house in the Midwest, and he had somebody want to see the basement in the house. And he was like, he just had a little bit of a weird feeling. And so he said, yeah, no problem. There it is, pointed the way. Never, ever lead prospective buyers or coming down the stairs into a basement or a space like that where you could potentially be trapped. Always point the way, have them go first, or talk about the features and say, you know, welcome to check it out. Note, you know, this bonus area over there, wine cellar over there, whatever. He found out later that this guy was a serial murderer. This is not, you know, Gene doesn't look like me. Gene's a big guy, even though he used to have that amputation and a prosthesis of his leg. He's a big guy. He's not somebody you would normally mess with. So that was just a real big eye-opener to me, to be really cautious, especially in a situation like that. Don't ever let yourself get backed into a room.
Yep. Other comments too, I mean, the best way is stay in communication with your office. Most offices are open, 9 to 5. So if you're doing that open house, another thing too is have the receptionist or somebody call you. Have a friend call you, check in every hour. It's another easy way to do it. I mean, it could be a text message. If somebody doesn't respond in 30 minutes, something's up, and they'll give you a call. And that's worked a lot in some real estate offices for it. So I'll introduce our next speaker. We have the Torrance Police officers here, the community affairs. I didn't know what the ending of it was. So you guys are up.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you guys so much for having us. My name is Christina Zukowski. I'm a services officer with the Torrance Police Department. I've been with the department for about a little over 15 years now. 9 of those I was working in the jail, so I got to see all the wonderful people coming through and stuff like that. I sat in on a lot of interviews, so kind of started really learning a lot of different things while I worked in the jail, and then the last 6 I've been in community affairs. So we do a lot of different types of presentations. We talk to high schools, community groups, neighborhood watch. That's basically what I'm in charge of neighborhood watch. How many of you are involved in your neighborhoods? Awesome. Yeah, our neighborhood watch program is really strong here in the city of Torrance. So, and I'm going to go and pass it over to my sergeant.
My name is Michael Chance. I'm a sergeant with the Torrance Police Department. I've been with them for 14 years. Most of my career spent in the field, in patrol. I also did a stint for about 4 years working undercover on our crime impact team. So some of the things we'll talk about today, I'll actually throw in some of my own examples of things that I've seen. When I worked that position, we actually followed career criminals and saw some of the things that they're doing. You learn a lot by watching human behavior when they don't know they're being watched, especially criminals. And that's what the reason we're here is to kind of advise you guys. The video that we just saw the last part of it. That's an excellent video. I mean, really, that from what I saw, that sums up everything that I would tell you anyways. Yeah, thank you, Danny. We're done. But really, if you guys follow those principles, and I'm glad that most people hadn't seen it already, because now you guys are all aware. I think the biggest thing that I would take out of that is never go somewhere and not have somebody know where you're at. And if you can, always try to have 2 people. Not only for your own safety, but for you're protecting that person's home that you're selling, right? And I know that you advise them to hide their valuables and precious documents and things. But some of these people that go into these houses are very, very slick. And it's hard to tell that they are what a criminal looks like, right? Unless you have like kind of a bad feeling. So a lot of what they do is based on distraction. So from my experience watching people that are, everybody know what gypsies are? I mean, they really do exist, right? We get a lot of calls almost daily in the city still of people panhandling. You know, you see a family, I don't want to say 100% of the time that they're gypsies, but I would say 99.9% of the time they're gypsies. And by the time we get to that call, they're already gone because they know that the cops have been called and everything. But those are the types of people that, and that type of mindset that you guys need to be aware of. People coming in, distracting you, kind of bombarding you with questions while the other people just kind of disappear. That's what I would be looking for the most. And that's in cases where you're trying to protect your client, their home from being burglarized.
So one of my mom's best friends, she's a real estate agent with RE/MAX, and we've known her for years and years. And I just recently bought my place about 2.5 years ago, and I took her all over Torrance, San Pedro, Lomita. Every time I'd see a new house or she'd send me listings, I'm like, let's go check this out, let's go check that out. I actually got very upset with her because she knows what I do, but we would go to whatever location, she would leave her purse, her laptop, her cell phone, everything visible in her car, just sitting right there. And we'd go inside and she'd show me the house, and I would say, Shar, you know, what are you doing? Don't leave that stuff in your car. You need to keep that stuff, you know, with you, or make sure you hide it before you go park at a location. So I'm sure probably most of you are really, really good about doing that. But with the holiday season coming up, we always try to recommend that if you do have valuables, don't leave them visible in your car. Make sure you lock them in the trunk prior to you arriving to your location. So if you're going to be showing a home for that day, try to keep especially us ladies, we like to have those big purses with everything in it because you never know what you're going to need. Try to keep it very minimal to the things you're going to need for that day or for that couple of hours. So that way you're not leaving too many valuable things in your car. And that way, if you are showing a home, your purse is not off to the side, and you have several people kind of coming through, and next thing you know, your purse is gone. Because that actually happened to her. She got very upset. She called me and apologized, but she left her stuff in her car again, and she showed a home, and when she came back, her car was broken into. And that was actually here, I believe it was here in Torrance, if I can remember, either that or Palos Verdes. So I kind of yelled at her a little bit. She's like, I know, I'm sorry, you tell me all the time. And she was like, but I was only in there for 10 minutes. I said, it takes just a few minutes for somebody to break in, and next thing you know, your stuff's gone. So just a little tip to remember when you guys are showing homes, or whether you're going to the Delama Mall to go shopping for Christmas season or whatever it is, make sure you don't leave those valuables in your car visible. If you are shopping, or you're bringing a lot of stuff to a certain location, make sure that you put all that stuff in your trunk and then go park in another location. So that way when you get in your car, nobody's seeing you putting the stuff in your trunk. Just one thing to protect yourselves, and also you can share that information with your clients as well. Yes, ma'am? Gym is another place too, yeah. That was one thing we were getting hit on for a while. We actually went out to a lot of the gym locations and were educating them a couple of years ago. But yeah, everybody gets off work, you go to the gym, and this ladies or even gentlemen will put stuff in the back of the trunk, and you go inside, and it's a perfect opportunity for people who are just hanging around the parking lots. A lot of times they look for just crime of opportunity. They may not have the intentions of going and committing a crime, but if they're just kind of loitering around or walking around and they see somebody do something like that, it's a perfect opportunity for them to break in or take your valuables. So same thing with gym lockers too. That's why it's always kind of good just to keep your bare minimum with you. Don't keep all your Social Security cards, every credit card you have, all that kind of stuff with you, because if you do become a victim, it's a little bit less of a hassle for you guys to report those things and get them replaced.
So it's really easy to become a victim, especially in your guys' line of business. You're showing houses, probably multiple houses on a day. So just think about that. The criminal mind is thinking about, I know that there's a listed house. I can sit on that house and wait for a realtor to come by showing some clients, and then they just follow you from there, and they wait for you to get out of your car. They know you're going to be in the next house for several minutes at least, right? Probably 15 minutes to a half hour at the next house, I would imagine. While you're inside the house, they just go break your window and look for, you know, the wallet, the purse, the laptop, all those things. It really only takes a matter of seconds. Same thing with what Christina said at like the gyms and the mall. These guys actually, they sit in the parking lot waiting, and they'll watch you. You know, you think you're doing the right thing, putting your purse in the trunk. Well, it only takes a couple seconds. Once they watch you walk in, they smash your window, they lift the trunk release, they have your purse now. So, like she said, if you're going to do that, do it before you get to that location so they don't actually see. I still would advise not leaving anything valuable in your car. It's just, you're just asking for it. On that subject, we don't mean to scare you guys talking about crime or anything like that. Torrance is actually a really safe city, as you guys know. There's different surveys that have come out in the last year. We're actually one of the 10 safest cities in, was it the country or the state on that one? I think that one was the state, and then we're 28th in the country. Okay, so overall we're a safe city. We're still a big city, even though we have like a small town feel. That's one of the things that's great about Torrance, right? It's a big city. It has a lot to offer, but it doesn't feel, doesn't have that feel of like LA where it's overly busy. One of the things we're proud of, it's actually a study that was just done, and it was done for through our records department. They ran a bunch of clearance rates compared with other cities the same size. So some of the other cities that are on there that we compared ourselves to, Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, Glendale, Pasadena, Redondo Beach, Culver City, Burbank, Gardena. Well, these are our clearance rates for, on here it includes violent crimes, homicide, forcible rape, robbery, aggravated assault, property crimes, burglary, motor vehicle theft, larceny, and then arson. So in those categories, we were actually first in clearing all those types of calls. So even though we do have a percentage of those types of crimes, really not violent crimes, we're really, really low as far as homicides and other violent crimes, but we do have our fair share of property crimes. So those are going to be the burglaries, the vehicle thefts, those types of things. We actually lead all those other cities in their law enforcement in clearance rates, and we thought that would be important. That might be something you guys want to share with your clients as far as the reason why they would want to live in the city of Torrance. Excuse me. One of the other things that we just found out, how many people, when you send something in the mail, how many people just throw it in their mailbox out front and lift the flag? Does anybody do that anymore? Okay. Shame on you guys. I'll explain why in a minute, okay? How many people go to the post office and go through the drive-thru and just leave it in the blue box? Probably a lot of you, right? I used to do that as far as a year ago. Don't be embarrassed. It's there for convenience, right? It makes it easy. We're always in a hurry, especially you guys. You guys are probably going to appointment to appointment. So there's recently been an increase in thefts from those blue boxes, and what that leads to is identity theft. So what they're looking for is like the 1st and the 15th of the month, and when I say they, talking about criminals, very sophisticated, they're looking to steal checks. They're looking to steal your checks, for mortgage, for payments. They're stealing those checks, they're washing them, and instead of your $50 check that you wrote to Edison is now a $500 check made out to whatever that person is. It's very easy to do. They're sophisticated. Yes. So there's various ways. So I've seen it, and this is where my experience comes into. We were actually when I worked undercover, I worked with a team. There's 5 or 6 of us, and we would wear plain clothes, drive our own cars, regular cars. You had no idea we were cops, and we would target these career criminals. Well, this one group, they were actually brothers. There was 3 brothers. They crime runs in the family, right? So we suspected they were up to doing vehicle theft type stuff, and they were. But prior to watching them do that, we actually watched them go by a post office one day, and they pull up to one of those blue boxes, and they have a stick with like a tennis ball on it, and it had a bunch of double-sided tape on it, and they stick it down like 3 or 4 times really quick, and they're just taking the mail off the end. I've seen a couple of different contraptions that are made for those types of things. It really takes a couple of seconds, and if you didn't know what you were looking at, because we really didn't at first until we saw the 2nd or 3rd time, it was like, what are they doing there? Are they actually dropping off mail? They weren't dropping off mail; they're stealing mail. So, and then I've taken other reports from my experience too, where people have done that. The other thing is too, there actually are like a universal key that maybe somebody from they bought one from somebody at the post office who's dirty, or they make one. Around Christmas time, we've actually, one of our sergeants was driving through the one on Monterey, and they have like those big boxes at Monterey because that's the main post office, right? So it gets so crowded and overfilled that they just put those white boxes out next to it, so it's totally unsecured. You can just go through there and look through it. So what we're advising and what we want you guys for yourselves, but also advise your clients to do, to avoid being the victim of identity theft, to avoid having to deal with having to notify, Social Security that your Social Security number's been compromised and all your credit companies and everything. Go inside. It's not convenient. Go inside and drop it inside the post office. It really only takes a couple of seconds. It's not as convenient as driving through. But remember, what's convenient for us is also convenient for the criminals too. And they're always, whenever technology or something comes up for the convenience of everyone, they're looking at a way to defeat that or overcome that in order to use it for their advantage. I know it's hard for you to imagine because everybody in here is law-abiding. We just don't think that way. But these guys actually do, and they don't have a remorse for it. They really don't. They're just trying to make a quick buck and use it to their advantage. Yes, sir. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you know what I do even when I go inside, I'll open it to look, because sometimes they're already full, so if they're that full, I won't put my mail in. I'll just use another one or come back in the morning. But that's a great idea too. Just keep your eye on it.
Just another tip is usually they have a list of times of when they actually pick up the mail from it, whether it's like 12, 1, 5, or whatever it is. If it's just around that time that you know a mailman's going to be there to actually pick everything out, or as you're driving up there, actually out there picking stuff out, it's another easy way for you to know that it's a little bit more secure. Excuse me, one other tip I like to give, because we do a lot of our Seniors Don't Be Scammed presentations. We're actually having one coming up next Tuesday at the Torrance Library. We offer it a couple times a year, and it's not just our senior community that are targeted, but it's everybody. So our detectives will come and they kind of update everybody on the current scams and identity theft things that are happening. But one thing I learned actually a couple years ago is if you write your checks with a gel ink pen, you can't wash that. It's permanent. It's on there. So we are starting to go around and telling our senior communities or anybody, if you still write checks, make sure you write it with ink. With the gel ink. So what we do is we actually purchase some and we supply those at these meetings. That way our senior community can actually have one of those. But just another tip, so that way if your mail is stolen or a check is stolen, at least they can't wash that check. It's a gel ink. It's just the ink is made out of gel. Yeah, it'll say.
Does somebody have one in here? Yeah, it's a little different. Yeah.
Yeah, the Office Depot, Target, you can pretty much get one anywhere. You just have to make sure it says gel.
Yeah, and the other thing you can do is when you do drop something in the mail, check your statement, see when it cleared. Make sure it cleared for the amount that you actually wrote it for. Don't just assume that it went through. So.
Yeah, you always want to verify your accounts. It's always really, really good, especially your checking or your debit account. Just kind of keep an eye on that, whether it's a couple times a week, once a week. Same thing with your credit card statements. A lot of times we get busy and we don't think about doing that stuff, but it's always good to double check. And this is all information you can pass to your family, your friends, your clients. Another thing I wanted to bring up is how many of you show houses or anything in the evening time, nighttime? And a lot of times you're probably by yourself, right? And most of your clients you might know already at this point or whatever, but it's always good to have a plan when you're going anywhere, whether you're going grocery shopping, going to visit family, you're in a movie theater, is if something were to happen right now, what would I do? Where are the exits? Where's my family? You just always want to think of a plan, whether it's a natural disaster or whether there's an active shooter situation or there's a fight that breaks out. You just kind of always want to think ahead. We're kind of trained to do that on a daily basis to the point where people call us paranoid. But it's just a good habit with your family, your children and stuff, just to kind of get them in that mindset. So anytime you go to a home, you're going to show a home, kind of go in with thinking that way. Where are you parking your car? Where are you walking up to the house? You know, where are the exits and entrances to the house? That way, if something were to happen or that person kind of turns on you or they're acting a little weird, how are you going to get out to be able to call the police? And another thing is whatever city, obviously if it's an emergency situation, call 911. Doesn't matter where you're at. But if it's something that maybe you're seeing that's suspicious and you're showing a home and it may not be in that house or with the people that you're with, but it might be something that's happening next door, whatever it is, and you want to call, or there's somebody sitting in a car outside and you don't know who that person is and they're just kind of watching you and you don't feel safe, you can always call the non-emergency number to whatever city you're in. And I recommend that you program the ones that you tend to frequent the most into your cell phone. So that way if a situation happens, you're not trying to fumbling, try to figure out what the phone number is to call. But like I said, if it's an emergency situation, obviously just call 911 and either, whatever police department can get there quickly. But as far as having, I'll answer your guys' question in a second, but as far as having a plan, part of that too, especially being women, is, we've got small women, big women, it doesn't matter what it is, but have a plan if you are attacked. You want to be safe, you want to get away, you can play dirty at that point. I always recommend that when you're walking to and from to your car, if you had a set of keys, what I typically do is I'll walk around so I have it just like this. Just in case somebody comes up at me, I can hit them in the neck and run away. But just little things that you guys can do, or carry pepper spray with you just in case you run into a situation where you don't feel comfortable or you feel like you're being attacked. You can do something to distract them. That way you can get away and call 911. But the Torrance Police Department, we do offer a self-defense class several times throughout the year for women. Typically we post it on our website and it's taught by our arrest and control officers. It's a 2-day program. It's 12 hours. So they'll do 4 hours of kind of classroom setting where they'll go over scenarios with you and kind of get you in that mindset of what to do to protect yourself. And then the second day is application. And we have women who've been 90 years old down to 16, and whatever your level of being able to be physical is, we'll show you a way on how you can defend yourself if you're ever put in that situation. So definitely check our website, and we also put that information out on Torrance Alerts, our Nixle, our Facebook, all of our social media platforms. So if that's something you're interested in, or you can always recommend it to your clients as well. And then you had a question in the back? Yeah.
If you see a suspicious car, if you feel like uncomfortable, I mean, we are kind of busy. We're not going to be able to do it on everyone, but if you can justify like why we're going out there, or something feels suspicious to you, if you can articulate that, we're going to send somebody out right away. So we're a big city, we usually have a lot of officers out there, and we do get busy, and we have to prioritize the calls, but we do take those types of calls very seriously, Do you have a particular experience? I'm kind of guessing you do. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. Well, just based on that, I mean, I'm just wondering if they don't drive because they choose not to, or because they, like, how can you afford to pay for a house if you can't afford to pay for a car? That would be my, so that's, to me, that would be a red flag right there.
So that kind of segues into my question, is kind of an odd question, but how much have you seen in your experience where someone's intuition really played a vital role in them staying safe? Because I try, if I have the least little bit of something that doesn't feel right, I'll tell myself, Allison, you listen to that. And so what is your on intuition?
It's huge. So one of the benefits that we have We're a very successful police department as far as people call in and they report a crime or suspicious activity, and they're usually right. It's a big city. We're budgeted for 227 officers. We're closer to about 200 officers. Not all of us are in the field at one time, right? We work shifts. We have to break it up into different divisions and everything. So we can't be at every place at one time, and a lot of our success, we told you about the clearance rates where we're the #1 out of some pretty reputable departments up there, and we consider ourselves right up there as well. But the reason we are is because of the input from our citizens. We've really pushed out that See Something, Say Something campaign. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. So we really encourage our citizens, if they see something that looks suspicious or feels suspicious, and a lot of those calls where something doesn't feel right, and a lot of times people's inhibitions are that, hey, I don't want to discriminate, I don't want to be that guy that is labeled a racist, I don't want to be the guy that is calling for some, or I don't want to bother the police. We get that one a lot too. Well, what we find out after the fact, and these are the people that don't call, we find out after the fact that they watched a burglary in progress. They saw 3 guys at their neighbor's house that they know don't live there, taking things from their house, and they say, well, I don't know, I felt bad because I don't want to be labeled this or that. Had they had called, and their initial intuition was they knew something was wrong, but because of, for various reasons, they didn't, and had they had called, we would have been able to catch those guys and keep that property from being stolen. Now, on the other hand, we get tons of citizens that actually do call, and that's where our success comes from. It comes from that. So I can't give you a percentage, but it's huge. I would trust your intuition. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Can you say something about being distracted in our business? For example, I was watching this program on TV. I learned a lot from this program, ID. You were watching. Well, anyway, they were showing this woman who was attacked, abducted, because she was on her cell phone while she was walking to her car.
And that's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah. So what I would do is, obviously, you're not supposed to be texting, talking, and driving, right? You guys aren't all doing that, right? Right. So obviously not supposed to be doing it, but while driving. I also wouldn't do it, going to and from my car. I think that would probably be the most opportune time. Say you're locking up a house, you're leaving after showing, and you're probably going to get right back on that phone to check your text messages, emails, or make a phone call, right? That's the perfect time for somebody that wanted to take advantage of you to actually do that. You're distracted, your head's down, you're going to be looking, you're walking at a place that you're not really that familiar with, right? Because maybe you've shown it a couple times, or this is the only time, and you're walking to your car. So you have a couple of different things going on. And somebody who really doesn't have to be that sophisticated, if they really wanted to attack you, it'd be very easy for them to do that. They could be waiting in the bushes. They could actually just be waiting on this, on the sidewalk, and you wouldn't see them because your head's down. We see a lot of that with like street robberies in the city. People, their heads are down, they're buried in their phone, they're not paying attention, and they're a perfect opportunity for a criminal who thinks that way to take advantage of somebody. A lot of crime is crime of opportunity. I've seen it a lot of times where people probably thwarted off a potential crime by just making eye contact and saying something. I would suggest, if you ever felt in danger, or if you had a suspicious vibe about somebody, to actually make contact with them. Look them in the eye, because they know that you've seen what they look like. You have a good description of them. You're going to remember that picture, that mental picture, if you look them in the eye. And if you say something to them, they're going to be more reluctant to do anything. They're going to walk away probably because they're looking for an easy target. If you stand up for yourself and you make that eye contact and you say something to them, they're actually going to probably go, I'm going to pick another target. So it shows you're paying attention too.
Hi, how you doing?
It really does make a difference.
It does. And another thing too is if you guys ever run into a situation to where you're sharing a home, or say you're going to the bank or you're doing something and you see somebody and they just kind of give you that weird vibe, you can definitely give us a call. I can't speak for every police department, but I know definitely for us, if you ever feel to that point where you don't feel safe walking out because there's somebody that's out there lingering by your car, whatever it is, you can call us and we can actually come out there and basically do kind of like a welfare check just to make sure you're okay, who this person is. We can escort you to your vehicle or whatever. So that's something we definitely want to do. You just got to call us and just let us know, hey, I see this person out by my car, or, you know, or if, like at the bank, it's a perfect situation. If you're going to the ATM and there's somebody next to you, just don't even complete your transaction. Just make sure you're closed out. Go back inside the bank and just say, you know what, this guy's making me feel uncomfortable, or just wait till they leave. Or if they're lingering around, you can definitely have somebody else that maybe works there come out with you or come walk you to your car. Because I know sometimes with the ATM, if you're withdrawing money, there's sometimes people will use that as an opportunity to rob you as well. So.
I actually have paperwork. So I brought a couple different brochures. The first one here is just our See Something, Say Something campaign, but it has different things of how to be a good witness and what to look out for. And we did a couple of videos as well.
So that way you guys are aware of all the different policies and assembly bills that have been passed in California and the reason why we're seeing an increase in crime. And then the other brochure I have is all of our non-emergency numbers, our numbers to our police department. So if you have a traffic-related question, you have a detective-related question or something like that, all of those phone numbers are provided as well as our website on there. So, and then one other thing, I like to mention, if you guys want to get emergency alerts, I have our Torrance Alerts card here. So any type of emergency or situation that's happening in the city, and as well as kind of community events and stuff like that, we'll post all that information through, and you can customize it to where you want to receive an email, text message, or a phone call.
I noticed that at the larger branches of banks, they now actually have a security guard at the ATM entrance up to the bank area.
Yeah, do you know why that is? She's saying that she noticed that some of the larger bank branches that they actually have a security guard near the ATM. So recently, and most of the banks are doing a good job of changing the procedures, but Bank of America in particular, how many people have Bank of America? Me too. Me too. So just keep this in mind, though. You guys have probably noticed when you go through Bank of America, at the end, some of the older ATMs, they have the option where it'll ask you if you want to make another transaction, and you say yes or no. Well, if you hit yes, like say you walk away, a lot of people do this. They walk away and they don't realize that. Well, somebody who's what we call shoulder surfing, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for somebody to walk away from the ATM. They're going to walk up, hit yes, and then make a transaction after you. So that's a big reason why those ATM, those security guards are there. It's not necessarily for a robbery, because we don't really get those as often. We still get those, but we don't get those as often as before. It's because of identity theft and they trying to make a transaction at the ATM. So, but they're a good person to contact if you do feel uncomfortable. I would advise them if you see something suspicious, advise them and wait, like Christina said, before walking to your car if you feel uncomfortable. I know you had a question.
Would you not also urge us realtors, if something does happen, to file a report? Case in point, there was a new agent in our office who was doing her very first open house, and when she was getting up her signs, strange-looking fellow was watching, made her uncomfortable, but she'd never done it before. She carried on. She set her open house. She went inside. He came in, again, not wanting to be judging. She just didn't think he looked like he was shopping in that area, which you never know.
Right.
Yeah. And he became very close to her face. He touched her. She kind of walked away, grabbed her phone, called her husband, but still very casually. And he came back up to her and said, "Oh, are you afraid?" And I don't really remember how it ended. Maybe somebody else came in and they left. And I urged her to make a police report, to give a description, but she didn't want to. So could you just add to that? Because that, I felt, was an affront to me.
Yeah, so that's a perfect example of where people, a lot of times, they might be a victim of a crime. And without knowing more, it's hard to see if that's a crime or not. But what could happen, though, is that person could be a serial rapist. They could be a serial whatever. and that information that she provides might be the missing link that somebody else couldn't provide, and that will help us. You know, law enforcement we work with other agencies, and we share information, and that information might be, like I said, the missing link to catch somebody who could potentially do something dangerous in the future. A lot of people are reluctant because they don't want to get involved in the legal system. They don't want to go to court, or they just, once that person's left, a lot of times they feel, hey, it's over with, I'm good. But you don't realize how much you're actually helping us. Let us come out and be the ones who determine if this is actually, one, a crime, and then, one, how useful it will be. We'll never say, no, we're not going to come out for that. We just, especially in this city, I can't speak for some of the larger agencies. They are really busy, and they get inundated with emergency calls. But for the city of Torrance, that's a really important call. I just thought of something when you were saying that, telling that story. How many people still have landlines in their houses? Good. I'm one of them. So you guys know why it's important? I'm sure the people that do have them know why. Well, for any emergency, actually. So when you call, you know why? Yep. So well, it's a little bit. So when you have a landline and you call 911, say you have a stroke or you're incapacitated, but you can still call 911. The exact address actually comes up in our communication center at the police station. If you call on your cell phone, just so you guys are aware, if you ever call on your cell phone, make sure you know where you're at. One of the first questions that the dispatcher is going to ask you is, what's your location and the nature of the call? Have that information ready. If you call 911 and you can't say anything, we'll send police and fire out there to try to determine what the nature of the emergency is. So, not so important necessarily to have it at your house, but you guys should probably be aware of that, of the houses that you're showing, right? That's a good thing to think about. Not yet. We don't have that technology yet. So what it does now is if you call 911 and say it disconnects, the GPS coordinates will come up to the nearest cell tower. Well, the nearest cell tower might be, it depends on how many calls are coming in that area. It might be 1,000 yards away. So good luck, trying to determine where that's at, right? So, yes, ma'am? What's that? Right.
Yeah, the internet phone, yeah.
Right. And it has to be, it's where you actually register it too. So sometimes you can sell those phone numbers. A couple years ago, we had one where it was showing an address, like an emergency of an address, in Torrance, but that number had been sold, and it was actually out of state. So that's scary too. Yes, ma'am.
There's one thing I wanted to talk to you about. You know the marketplace selling that you do on Facebook and things like that, where you're selling stuff? Personally, when I feel like the person I'm talking to is suspicious, I always say meet me at the local police station if you want to do the transaction. And 9 times out of 10 they will drop out and I won't hear from them. And I just wanted to share that I do that because I think it might be good. It's a cautious way of selling online.
I think that's a great idea. And if you guys didn't know that, you guys can do those types of transactions. Or if you want to meet somebody for the first time, a client for the first time, you want to meet them at our lobby, you can come meet them at the station. Our lobby is open to the public. Yeah. Yes, in the back? So without knowing how many times he did it and the exact context of the text messages, what I would do in a case like that is actually call us. An officer will respond to you and look at them. They might be embarrassing, some of those text messages, but they're going to look at it. There is a crime against making annoying phone calls or annoying text messages. So. Right.
So let me ask you a question. If he showed up, what would you do? Yeah. He showed up. There we go. Perfect answer. Yes.
I'm just saying,
Always call us.
in a car and one else comes in, like you were talking about open house safety, and then after that, I was really careful and aware and that kind of thing, but, women, as women, we get really about those guys. They show up to your open house, they're not there to look for a house, but then later decide, contact me, I don't need to.
Always trust your instinct. Always, like you said. Especially as women, you just never know. And if somebody's
acting a little weird. I mean, I got it in the jail too. It was like when I used to book people, I would go to the gym, and next thing you know, oh yeah, you booked me last night, and I'm like, oh no, we're not friends, like we're good, But I would pay attention, and a lot of times they'd follow me through the parking lot and stuff. And if it got to the point where it was bad, I would just call work and say, hey, can you just send a unit out here? There's a guy that I booked the other night, and he's following me and stuff like that. But same thing like what he said earlier, just if you show that you're not afraid of them, and then for me it was very easy. It's different because when I'm at work, I'm wearing my uniform, I'm in the jail, I'm actually very mean. And but when you're out and about and stuff, I grew up that you're nice to everybody, you're polite and stuff like that. So you always kind of go back to that instinct a little bit, and I thought, I don't need to be nice to this guy, I just go, F off, leave me alone. And so you just want to kind of show that just if it gets to that point. But like even myself, I work in law enforcement and those things can happen. So if it continues or if there is ever a period where you're seeing him in the car or whatever it is, just don't hesitate to call us so we can go out there and talk to him. Yeah, there is a penal code section for it's 653. Yeah, it's annoying phone calls. So it could be any type of context. There's certain ones that meet to like a criminal or a crime. I'm blanking on criminal threats. Yeah, so they're actually threatening to do bodily harm. But then there's the different ones where they're being annoying or they're being sexually annoying or whatever it is, and you can actually file a report for that.
If that were happening to me, I would document the dates, times, to make a report, an accurate report. So one of the things that if you do report it, the officer is going to ask you is how often is this happening, and if you have examples, especially written documentation, or you're putting it in your phone every time it happens, then that's perfect for us because then we can justify or verify your story. So when we come out to take a report, one of the things we're doing is we're going to get your side of the story, and then hopefully we're going to get that other person's side of the story after an arrest or before an arrest to see if everything is actually matching up. So the more information you have, it really helps in the prosecution of that person. Mm-hmm. No big deal. Actually nothing, yeah. Unless there's some other crime, sleeping in your car is not a crime anymore. Yeah, about a year ago, maybe a little bit more. So if there are other, we understand it's a nuisance, and the fact that it's now legal, the courts have ruled it legal. It makes it difficult for us to do things unless there are some obvious other crimes being committed. So, littering, right. Noise, something like that. So if you do have to call the police, how many people have actually had to call like the non-emergency line or 911 before, right? They're going to ask you a bunch of questions, right? It's probably annoying. The reason they're doing that, though, is they're sending an officer, at least one officer, to a call, right? When we go to a call, we want to have as much information as possible when we go there. They're not doing it to be annoying, and a lot of times people think, they'll complain and be like, I don't know why they treated me that way. They didn't believe me, or they waited forever to send an officer. Well, that's not really happening. What they're doing is they put that call in to the CAD system, which is the dispatch system. So they've sent an officer. You just didn't hear it because you're on the phone with them. And while they're en route, they're updating them with more information. So the more detailed you can be in your responses to the dispatcher, and be patient with them. You know, they're going to ask you some things that you probably didn't even think about, but they're going to try to get you to remember, is going to be more helpful to the officers. And sometimes what's suspicious to you right away, yeah, you're probably right, it's suspicious, but we need a legal justification to actually make contact them. Otherwise, we're violating somebody's civil rights, right? So we have to make legal stops. We have to make legal justification for why we're contacting somebody. So the more information you give us, the better. So you can if you can do it safely. If you feel you can do it safely, you know, if you want to get a license plate or to get a description of the person, absolutely. But don't ever put yourself in danger just to do that. You know, try to get as good of a description as possible, and then we'll take care of it from the rest once we get there.
One more question. I'm amazed every time that we have discussion conferences too. We really should have more Q&A questions. It seems like we could ask questions all day long. So let's do one more and then I'll wrap up.
I don't know I saw a bunch of hands, so I don't know. Up here? You can carry those as long as you're not just, you know, arbitrarily using it. You know, I would make sure you have a justification for it. You know, you said you go into some of these buildings where there's transients and those types of things. I wouldn't even go in them. I would call the police. That's perfect.
Right, that's a good idea. So
Yeah.
you have somebody else who can kind of going, and if you do encounter just transit setting up, just say, okay, just go and call the police, but then they can go contact these people and who they are. Another thing is always, no matter where you're going, whether it's
A new open house, you're going to and from, always let somebody know where you're at. Let them know what time you're supposed to be there, kind of give them estimate times. Sure, all of you, you know, if spouses at home or family members and stuff like that, other coworkers, just always make sure that somebody's aware of where you are, because if something does happen, and God forbid that, you know, you get kidnapped or even worse, somebody's like, wait a minute, they were supposed to get done at this time, I haven't heard from them, they're not answering their cell phones, they know to call the police, so that way we can get people there in time and figure out what's going on, so. Oh, just really quick, National Coffee with a Cop is coming up next Wednesday, October 4th. I'm going backtracking. So we're teaming up with our fire department this time. It's a national event now, so we're going to be at the Coffee Bean and Teen Leaf over by Delama Mall, right across from Nordstrom's, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. So if you guys want to come out, have some decaf. I know it's a little later. Regular coffee, if that won't keep you up, and some pastries and stuff, and we'll be there with the fire department, and we'll answer any questions that you guys have. October 4th, next Wednesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Coffee Bean and Teen Leaf off of Hawthorne Boulevard.
The address is 21300 Hawthorne.
We have that information on our website as well. Thank you guys so much for having us. Our paperwork, you guys all have it, but our community affairs email address is on there, so if you guys have any more questions for us, feel free to email, and one of us from our team will get back to you. Our phone numbers are listed there. I also have my card that you guys have that, so if you have any other questions, feel free to email or give us a call, okay?
So let's give another round of applause, guys. Thank you. So now we have our next speaker, Matt Cohen. He's the Chief Technologist from Clarity Consulting. So he's going to talk a little bit about wire fraud, technology security, to get you guys set up here. Let's see. And you're awesome.
Okay.
I think you're
Great.
power on it.
I'm mic'd. I should be good.
There you go.
Okay. Well, welcome. I'm actually here from Minneapolis, visiting you. Before I introduce myself a little more, just want to follow up on some of the previous presentations with some additional resources that I think are really valuable. If you go to the National Association of Realtors website, they do have a section called Realtor Safety. It's easy to search for, and they have a whole list of products and especially tons and tons of safety applications for smartphones. Now, these are no replacement for common sense and a lot of the things your instructor mentioned to you. They are nice things to augment the steps that your instructor mentioned and some of the things the police mentioned as well. There are definitely apps that are not on this list. This is not a comprehensive list. Again, you can search for Realtor Safety, and down here on the right-hand side menu, resources for realtors, safety resources, tons of different apps. They all do a lot of different things. There's ones that aren't on there, like Real Safe Agent, that are great. I've written about these things before. They do everything from having one-touch 911 access to one-touch friends alert. Some of them have things like duress pins, like if they say, oh, we know it's this app, you can, they do all sorts of wacky things to try to make you safer. Some of them, if you don't check in regularly or check in after a period of time after open house, they will automatically let people know that you haven't checked in. A lot of false positives that way, but it's better to have a friend call you and not reach you than you'd be safe. Anyway, I'm going to get on to my big topic here, which is real estate's wire fraud and other cyber threats. Actually, I found out about real estate wire fraud around 6 years ago, and I'm going to rush through some things here because we're running a little on the later side here. I found out about this around 6 years ago. I actually got a call from an attorney in this area wanting me to testify against a broker because they thought the broker had been negligent in losing their clients' money, and I politely declined because I kind of work with brokerages. I don't want to sour that milk. But it's a serious issue, and right now, over the last 6 years, the FBI has a figure, they've been tracking it for around 3, over $1 billion in loss. I think it's probably closer to 1.5 over the last 6 years, and especially since a lot of people don't report to the FBI. It's serious money, and frankly, it's the reputation of our industry at stake. I think we're courting regulation, the kind of regulation from the government we don't really want. They'd be right to do it at this point. We've lost well over $1 billion of consumer money to wire fraud. I get calls every week from brokerages, sometimes multiple brokerages, that this is happening to. This is not it might never happen. This is happening all the time. Just touch about me. I work with MLSs, associations, franchises, large brokerages. I do everything from the pretty hardcore security audits, all sorts of things. I've been on that Inman News 100 list. But in the security context, I'm the fixer. I often get a call from, especially the larger brokerages, when things go really wrong. For those of you familiar with the Pulp Fiction movie, I'm kind of the Harvey Keitel character that gets called when there's blood on the seat. I don't want to get those calls. I want to give you enough information that you can vastly reduce the risk of wire fraud happening to you and your company, and hopefully eliminate it. How many of you are brokers? Okay, a few, and this is a mix of agents and brokers. There's going to be a mix of information in here, some of which is going to be really specific to brokerages, some of which is good for agents, but even the stuff for brokerages, it'll work for everyone. I think everyone is aware about real estate wire fraud. This is the kind of wire fraud you hear a lot about, where someone tricks the home buyer into wiring them the settlement funds. That's the most common form. And I'm going to give you a little example here. Here's another one. Home buyers lose life savings, sue Wells Fargo, the realtor, and the title company. I have hundreds of these. Each one of these destroys the reputation of a realtor, and one day, probably, if we're not careful, will destroy the realtor brand. So I take this stuff very, very seriously. Again, the FBI has figures earlier in the year about the losses approaching $1 billion. Again, I've tracked it a lot longer. It's bad. And the government is well aware of this. So if you think we're going to slip under the radar, we're not. I've created a best practices document, especially if you are either a broker or if you're an agent and you want to make sure your broker is aware of this. This is a document that I keep pretty updated as new forms of the wire fraud happen. If you go to the website, clarity.com, you can search for it, you can find it. It's a pretty long document. I'm going to spend a fair amount of my time with you describing that document, getting into it, but you don't have to take pictures of the board, of all the text I'm going to talk about. You don't have to scribble it down. You can get it right out of the document, cut, paste, do whatever you need with this stuff. Now, the FTC describes the problem thus, and many of the articles I read and you read about wire fraud describe it that the hackers break into email accounts, and near the closing date, the hacker spoofs an email from a real estate professional to the buyer, telling them to wire funds to the bogus account, and the money's never seen again. Now, this is one of the main forms of real estate wire fraud, but it is not the only form. And so my goal is to make sure you understand all of the complexity and have processes and policies and procedures to address all of them, not just this little piece of it. I'm going to give you a little video here just to give you an example.
A cautionary story to share with you now. A young woman looking to buy a house ends up a victim of fraud. Sean O'Shea joins us live in studio with this exclusive story. Sean.
Well, that's right, Crystal. This woman was in the market to buy a house with the help of a well-known real estate company, RE/MAX. But the realtor's email account was hacked, leaving her in the lurch and out thousands of dollars.
Single house.
At 22, Caitlin DeMarco scrimped and saved to buy this house in Cambridge.
She was pretty focused and stuck to her budget.
Her agent, Tina Goldrick, with RE/MAX Twin City Realty, one of the largest brokerages in the area. Caitlin figured she was in good hands.
RE/MAX. So I'm like, well, this is awesome.
Caitlin signed the deal in person, although her mom claims Goldrick wished to communicate mostly by email, a request her mom says made her uncomfortable.
She said, that's the only way that I do business.
Goldrick's email address is a Gmail address. Back in February, it was a message coming from Goldrick's Gmail that asked that another $10,000 be wired to an account for title insurance on the house. Since it came from Goldrick's Gmail, she paid.
It was like no second thoughts.
Days later, when Caitlin was asked for another $42,000, the bells went off. Goldrick said she hadn't asked for more money. Turns out her account had been hacked. Caitlin's money and personal information had been stolen.
That is negligence and not protecting the interests of your client.
Lawyer Samantha Kessler says the agent
we
and
could
the
get into this
brokerage
quite a ways.
should
I'm
not have
going
been using
to
Gmail accounts.
cut it there. But that just gives you one story about one brokerage and one agent. Again, this is happening constantly to so many people. Gives you a little sense of it. And here's kind of what it looks like. These are real examples from real brokerages that I've been working with. This one happened to come from a Gmail account, and it looked like, actually the person had a KW account in this case, but the hacker just started up a Gmail account that with their first name and their last name before the @ sign, right? And here are the things to watch out for when you get an email. Not always, but here's a lot of them. Urgent, regarding a listing address. Creating a sense of urgency is one of the most important things the hackers do with your clients or even with you and your brokerage to try to get you to take immediate activity without thinking. So anything that says it's urgent, look at very carefully. Slow down, take a deep breath, a little hot yoga, whatever it takes. To move forward on this address, we need to have the money wired immediately. And once you wire the money to this account, I'll call you. Now, I'm in a meeting and won't be available to talk until I call you later. See what else they're doing? They're saying, don't call to confirm this. Don't contact them. Don't think, just act. That is a second big red flag. And then they put the agent's email signature leading to the Gmail and a wrong phone number in case the person actually tried to contact the agent anyway. You can never trust the number in a suspicious email or the contact information to confirm, right? Very, very, very bad. Okay, that's just one example, and that's the example that the FTC talks about a lot. That's the example you see in the articles. Here's another simple example. This one, they'd actually hacked the agent's email address, and it was easy because they had unencrypted wireless in the brokerage office. So someone just sat there in the parking lot on the wireless, grabbing everyone's usernames and passwords for the email. So they were actually using the agent's real email account. This was not faking it. Okay, they can fake it too, but they were actually logged in and just said, time to wire the funds. Joe and Mary, please wire this amount for this address to here, and the agent's email signature. That's simple. Okay? Gives you a good starting point on recognizing these things. And again, that's my biggest thing. Make sure you recognize it. And then the second part of this presentation, I'm going to talk about what you can do about it, even if you don't recognize it. Okay? Now, there's a lot of other ways that this happens. I've seen it where they send the real estate professional some malware, an attachment, take over their computer. I've seen where they change the instructions regarding the wiring inside the broker or title office, not only via email, but via phone, fax, regular mail, inter-office memo. And again, if they can call and get an assistant to change the wiring instructions, that's it, right? You do the deal, the disbursement happens, but doesn't go to the right account. Here's a classic. This is a classic. Okay? Broker name at gmx.com. The person inside the office, who this is to an assistant inside the office or an agent. Seller wants proceeds wired to their trading account. Can you help with this? Very innocuous. Person answers yes. Person says, oh, here's the new information. Person inside your office makes the switcheroo for the hacker. And everything's done, right? Millions and millions of dollars can be sent in a heartbeat to the wrong place. Okay, so again, a lot of the articles focus on the consumer, but this happens inside the office as well. And again, don't just focus on email. It happens phone, fax, inter-office memo, mail. I've seen every variation of this. Social media. I've seen it all. Okay. Understanding is the first step. If you don't understand how it happens, you can't take the steps. Okay. Now here's a somewhat newer wire fraud variation. The hacker will grab the realtor's DocuSign credentials or Zip Forms credentials or other, right, e-signature credentials. Right. Looks just like this. I mean, again, no matter what program you use, just says, oh, so here's a thing to review the document and sign it, right? Or client sent back counter, there's a counter offer. Here, go look at it here. Whatever. So you click on that, and you're not taken to the real DocuSign site. You're not taken to the real transaction management, document management, e-signature site, right? It's a bogus email. Looks like the real thing. When you click through, it looks real. You put your information in. It says, oh, wrong password, then sends you to the real site. You just thought you made a little typo on the password, right? But in the reality is, the hacker just got your credentials. Now they will log into the transaction management system and try to figure out what are some good deals that are going to pop here, right? When's it going to happen? When can I strike? Now a lot of agents and brokers, no one here, I'm sure, would ever do this, but they would sometimes reuse the same password for the email as they do for the transaction management or social media, because this could be a social media message too. Oh, log into Facebook. Oh, someone sent you a LinkedIn request, right? Again, if you reuse passwords, then they might have access to your email. Now, a lot of times when your email gets hacked, people tell you, oh, change your password. Hackers are trickier now. They'll set up rules, in the little filtering rules inside the email system, so that emails from this client that they want to attack skip your inbox and get sent right to them. So if you ever think your email's been hacked, don't just change your password. Look to make sure no filtering rules have been put in place, right?
How do you do that?
Depends on what your email system is. I mean, in Google, there's a thing called filters. It's the same thing you do to automatically get, when an email comes in for like a newsletter, to put it in this folder automatically. Same thing. Same kind of area of the email system. But again, if you have Outlook, it's one place. Gmail, it's one thing. Yahoo, it's another. But you gotta look for your help for whatever system is you use. Again, once they're in there, the emails are coming from your real account. If they can log into your email, it's not just a fake job, okay? And they can, once they know what's going on, here's the thing. Once they're inside a document management system, the other thing that they do, which might spook you out, is once they know the mortgage person involved, the title person, all the people involved in the transaction, they send multiple emails to the consumer, right? One from you saying, hey, the person from the title company is going to send you an email soon, right? Maybe someone from the mortgage, on the mortgage side clicks up too, right? And if they've gotten 2 or 3 emails that, oh, you're going to expect this email to come in, they don't confirm with you then when they get instructions, right? Because they think, oh, I don't have to call them because the title person said it was okay, right? So again, once they're inside your transaction management, your document management system, they can really do a lot to fool people because they know everyone involved in the transaction, when things are going to happen, what's supposed to happen. In email, it's bad enough, but when they get into those systems, it's very bad.
So if escrow or title sends our client a link to wire, can they hack that link?
Well, unless they hack the website that the link is to, no. But the point is that it's not really the title company sending the link in these cases, right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, don't they do that regularly?
What I'm saying is,
Escrow to help with our customers as well?
escrow can help. Again, that's just one place where money is being moved. In the case from the video, this was just emails going to the consumer that had nothing to do with escrow. And the hackers are frankly more after the settlement, the full-on millions of dollars, than they are like some money in escrow. That said, there are some software companies out there that focus just on protecting the escrow and again, sending anything via email is just frightening. Again, I got a ton of material to cover. I'm going to come back to questions. Trust me, I will come back to them. Again, we're seeing this. I'm just using DocuSign as an example. It's not just them. It's all of these systems. Here's another one where the subject line read, you have a new encrypted document. It contains a Word doc. It had malware. It came from service@DocuSign-document.com instead of @DocuSign.com, right? And again, people got fooled, thought it was the real thing, got malware. Another example where it was someone that set up DocuSign.com without the I. Again, they're very tricky. And again, I'm not using this examples because they put it on their website. Other vendors don't always put it on their website, but they all have these kinds of issues. Again, I could focus on email, but I don't want you to forget that it happens via fax just as readily. Again, just a fax comes in to the office, ostensibly from the buyer, bank name, account number, and it was bogus. It was not real. It was not from the buyer. They just got in the middle. They got everyone's contact information, email, transaction management system, and used the old-fashioned way that people are they look at it less, right? Because you trust a fax. It's in print. It's in front of you. Okay, so I just want to give you a sense here that there are 2 stages to the wire fraud problem. The first is usually information gathering. They fish for information or credentials, right? They send an email that tricks you into clicking through or taking an activity. They try to gather your email credentials, your transaction management credentials. Then they do a wireless intercept of that information. Again, if you use unencrypted wireless, it can be intercepted. They scrape websites. They send bots around to grab the data off your websites. And then they can send email to every selling agent in the city with the appropriate address to say, offer on this address. Trust me, agents, well, you know it, agents stay things that say offer on an address that they're representing is going to try to do their best to log in and open whatever, right? And again, they can gather thousands of these just off any IDX website. They gather intel off websites, and by that I mean they figure out who's working in your office. If you have all your people's names and emails and phone numbers listed, and you have like assistants and stuff like on there, they're going to know, they're going to be attacking that. And again, you've seen some examples already where they send a malware document and they take over the computers. So what we have is the information gathering, and then they move on to an attack. Once they know what they're going for, what account, what transaction, they'll use either a non-technical or technical means, and they'll do it to the consumer or right into their office. That's a lot more information than you usually, when you read about this, it's always, oh, phishing email to the consumer. No, it's very sophisticated, and it keeps changing. It keeps changing. It's the same idea. They're trying to do the same thing. They come up with new methods, new emails, new ways of attacking. So I want to give you a couple of different ways that you can stop this problem or reduce the risk. I never say stop. I hate to say stop the problem because it's like I'm telling you you can make it 100% secure. There's no such thing as 100% secure. It's like when you buy a safe. They're rated in minutes, number of minutes to break in. There is no infinity minute safe, right? It's the same with online. There's no such thing as secure. But you can take reasonable steps to minimize the risk. So I'm going to go through some things you can do. Pretty straightforward. I'm going to go over these in some depth, and again, the details are all also going to be in that paper you can get off my website. It's free, just download it. A disclosure form for clients, okay? Something that you give them when you're getting a buyer rep agreement, when you're representing, selling agreement, listing agreement. Just get them to sign something saying that they understand all these things are happening and they're going to follow these procedures. They sign that at the same time. I'd love it if CAR came up with a standard form for this, but they don't have. Oh yeah. CAR has one. CAR's pretty unique. I forgot about that. CAR is pretty unique. Yeah.
And it's pretty good at keeping it simple but scary, so that clients take it seriously.
Good. Get it signed, and if you have a brokerage, make it required. Get it done. Get it signed. Get it in. Get it into the file. It's part of getting paid, just like everything else. Ongoing reminders to everyone involved with emails, flyers, email signatures. The more places you can show that you warned them that this could happen, the less risk you have if someone takes you to court. Addendums in the early agreements. I guess that's kind of the CAR form. If you can get it done at the same time as you get these early forms signed, awesome. At the brokerage level, there are a couple of steps. One is company policy. Okay, now there are two, how do I put this? In terms of protecting yourself, there's a tendency, as in we tend to do the right thing, and there's policy, we've told our employees the right thing, right? How do I put this? When something happens, even if you have good insurance, the first thing they're going to ask is, so did you train these people? Did you train these people to to not do the wrong thing? Did you tell them what they need to do with the consumer? Did you tell them, the assistant in the office, not to change the number without confirming it this way? And if you say, no, well, we don't have any company policies, we don't have anything formal, we just talk about it. It's going to get very hard to get paid on that insurance. And there are eight brokerages that have lost millions of dollars on these things. Training. If you have a policy and procedure to protect against wire fraud, but no one knows about it, A, it's not doing much good, and B, an insurance company will ask about that too. And compliance monitoring. Again, if you're a brokerage and you have a whole stack of forms for all your properties where the buyers and sellers signed off on the CAR form, you're in much better shape than if you don't have any of that. So look, here's a classic email signature example. And I've got a bunch of them, a few of them inside the paper, again, that you can download from my site. Pretty standard. Online banking fraud and cyber crimes on the rise. If you get an email containing wire transfer instructions, requesting personal financial information, or asking you to download, send, or do anything that seems unusual, call your real estate agent or escrow officer immediately prior to acting on the suspicious email. Please be diligent, exercise caution, especially when funds or financial information are involved. Pretty good reminder. How many of you have this sort of thing on your own email? Not many. How many of you put it on your prospecting emails as a footer? Silence. Okay, a really good idea. Again, the more, people forget. If they're signing 50 things at the beginning, it's reasonable the consumer could not notice and not really read that disclosure form, the CIR form. But if you're sending to them all the time, it's real hard. Say, I sent them 50 emails that have this signature at the bottom. It's really hard when they say, oh, I didn't bother confirming it with the email agent, even though I was told to 50 times. Okay? You could have a much more sophisticated disclosure form. Again, you have this CIR form. This is just another, it's probably fairly similar example here, where you just describe it to them. It's a big sheet of paper, and they sign it at the bottom. And it says, please be aware there are numerous email, fax, text, and social media messenger scams involving wiring funds in conjunction with real estate transaction. They involve authentic looking but fake email and request information to direct users to a fake website or a criminal's email, request information. Please note that your company, will not send wiring instructions via email, fax, text, or social media message. Your licensees have been cautioned concerning computer hackers will not attempt to send you wiring instructions via electronic means. Right there and then. If you receive it, let us know, basically. And then there's stuff for sellers and stuff for buyers. Again, the stuff for sellers, prompts them to verify that the correct instructions were received by a known representative. And it's important that they confirm with the intended recipient the wiring instructions are not to be substituted without your verbal consent. Again, so stuff for everyone, stuff for buyers, stuff for sellers. And then, again, never rely exclusively on an email, fax, text, or social media message. And then immediately tell your banking institution if you're a victim of wire fraud. And if you receive fraudulent wiring instructions, notify someone at your company, right? Again, if you find out it's happening, if you get a few of these in a row, you might send out a pretty big alert, right, to all your people, make sure they are aware there's sort of an attack happening. Again, they sign it. It's a good thing. Maybe the car form is sufficient. Maybe you want to have something in addition. Whatever works for you. Okay, the next thing I want to get to is policy. Policy and procedure for a brokerage office. And again, I'm going to say these are things that should be mandated down from the broker. But if you're an agent, this is good advice for you anyway, whether or not it's the formal policy of your broker. Okay? But I have company policy. Policies are for employees. Obviously, if you're a broker, you have a contractual relationship rather than an employee relationship, at least for most brokerages. There are some newer ones where they do have employees. The point is, you might want to check to make sure that if you are amending company policy, it's included by reference in your legal agreements, and consult with your attorneys on that to make sure that if you're introducing company policy, that your contractors are actually obligated to follow it. So you might want to look at your contractor agreements to make sure you're solid. Again, work with your attorneys on that. So this is where you as a company are saying, here is what you need to do to agents. Agents will provide the wire fraud warning document. It could be the CAR addendum, whatever it's called, with all buyer agency contracts and listing contracts, obtain client signatures, and must be submitted to the brokerage with those other contracts. Pretty straightforward. Title company staff, if you have an affiliated title company, most people don't, but some brokerages do. Title company staff will provide every new buyer the wire fraud handout. Maybe you have a handout. I've got examples in that report I mentioned earlier. If communication with clients is via email or other messaging services that allow for a signature, the wire fraud signature has to be included, in close proximity, in a font no smaller than the median size in the email, no lesser contrast. So again, for the game players out there, they can't make it gray in 5-point type and you can't read it, right? They have to put it for real in their email address. And again, this is policy. Then we get into some stuff a little more technical, right? Just a little bit. How you have to configure your work email as instructed by the brokerage. Not your personal email, but if you have a work email, it has to use a strong password. We all know what strong passwords are. For the people that don't, you might have a separate password policy that applies both to their laptops and their email addresses and everything else. You know, longer than 8 characters, letters, numbers, punctuation, a lot of entropy in there. But again, you can get into that in a separate password policy. Use encryption for the email connection. And if you have someone technical in your operation, please speak with whoever that person is if you need help configuring your email client to meet this requirement. So even if you're on non-encrypted wireless, if the email itself is encrypted, if the connection is encrypted between the client and the server, it's a little something. I know that gets a little technical. Again, some of this is policy that you can review with the brokerage staff and the technical staff, technical consultants. Make sure you're doing the right thing. Use email two-factor authentication like Google offers and some of the other providers offer. Be careful about using email attachments. You might have a separate email policy where you describe in extreme depth what to look for. Something I mentioned earlier, use a strong password used for this email account and not shared with others. Again, a unique password, not something that you use for everything, right? So if someone hacks you with a phishing email for Facebook, it's not going to be a professional email password, okay? If you have a company-approved transaction management system, you want to make sure they use that for communication instead of their email or any other mechanism. If you use Wi-Fi, I mentioned it earlier, but again, this is policy. This is in writing. If you use Wi-Fi, you have to use WPA2, the encryption. If you're unsure about the encryption level, you may not use it. You could also specify for the more technical people in the audience, use virtual private network or VPN software that can protect you if you're on one of these unencrypted wireless. I've got one running on my computer here. You could see, even though I'm on your very nicely encrypted association Wi-Fi, which is nicely encrypted, I have an encrypted tunnel to somewhere else where even if someone were able to snoop, they wouldn't be able to see because I'm running some virtual private network software. And there's many VPN software available. Again, some of this you're going to need some technical help. I'm sure you have technical people on your staff or someone locally that can help you out. There's a lot of different VPN, virtual private network software out there. I happen to use one called Tunnel Bear. It's no better or worse than a lot of the others out there. Yes?
If you're on a public Wi-Fi, whether it be at your office or the airport or Starbucks or whatever, how do you find out if that Wi-Fi is encrypted with WPA2? That's the second time I've heard reference to. I have no idea what the hell it means.
Awesome. Here you go. Here in Windows, note that it says secured. Secured, 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 secured. If I scroll down the list, there are some that are not secured. And some people do that, just so people can just jump on, jump off. They don't have to know a passphrase. They don't have to know anything. But again, you're going to see the Windows and Android and iOS. They all have like encrypted or secured or something that shows you. They put a little lock on it. They've got all sorts of.
How do you know that it's secured or encrypted with WPA2? Like what I heard when this was referenced the other day was that there are several different types of encryption and it needs to be.
This one, it's really hard. You have to dig into the properties, and you can right mouse click on the PC and look at the properties of the connection, and it's a pain. Frankly, I use VPN software everywhere. I just don't trust anyone's network, frankly, because I do penetration testing for a living, and even secure wireless just scares me. There are free ones. There are ones that are like $50 forever. There are ones that are $50 a year. I mean, it's that kind of level of cost. If you
use a public Wi-Fi and that have your own access to it be secured?
That's kind of what I'm getting at. This VPN software provides encryption inside the wireless signal. Virtual private network. There are many varieties. If you have a firewall in your brokerage office, many firewalls come with VPN software built in, and you can just basically you build an encrypted tunnel to your brokerage office, and then it goes out to the internet from there. Anyway, that's another big subject to get into. VPN, virtual private network. There's a lot. You can look for VPN reviews. I mean, go online, go to Google, VPN review, and find all sorts of geeks talking about the various VPNs. You're going to see newspaper articles about it. You're going to see, it's a big thing, big subject. Just like buying anything, buying a computer, buying antivirus, buying anything. There are reviews online of all of this kind of stuff. But just being aware that there's something called VPN software. If you use wireless anywhere, I'd use it. Got to get back into policy and procedure. There's so much to cover. It's such a complex topic. I know it's a little dry compared with the cool cops, but there's a lot to there's lots to cover. There's a lot to do to protect yourselves. Okay, if you use a personal computer, tablet, phone, or other mobile device, you might want to make it compliant with the company's bring your own device policy. So you might have a policy in your company saying, hey, if you have a mobile device, you're going to use the encryption setting. You're going to set the screensaver, right, so that you have to type in a number to get into it. You might have a bunch of different things for people that have computers and mobile devices where they're using company data, but your IT person does not control entirely, right? So again, all sorts of things using antivirus software. So many people, they have PCs, Macs, or Android, and they don't have antivirus software. I'm going to come back to that later. It's like making a matter of policy that they have to if you're a broker. If they're going to use that for your information that you're liable for. Same thing for work computers. You might have a workstation configuration policy, a mobile device configuration policy. Again, you might have a lot of technical details that your staff uses to verify that your employees and contractors are taking the reasonable steps. Again, if you're an agent in the room and you don't have this sort of stuff from your broker, you might want to ask them about it. Hey, why don't we have any standards in this company about making sure that people are doing the right thing to protect the information on these laptops and these mobile computers? They're not phones anymore; they're mobile computers. Remember that. Okay, so let's back away from the technology for a minute and talk about process. So this is from one of my brokerage clients. They actually came up with this themselves, which I think was awesome. They actually have a process when someone inside the company wants to change the wiring instructions, right? Someone, an initiator, someone who wants to make the change, fills out a wire transfer request form. They have a form for this, right? It's not an online form. It's a paper form, okay? The reviewer, someone else in the company, calls the initiator, and they provide a verbal password that never has been seen online, right? This is I want to change the, yes, that was me sending you that form. I want to make that change, and the password is peanut or whatever, okay? If the reviewer signs off that they received the verbal password on the form, if it's invalid, they let someone inside the brokerage know, and if it's valid, they make the change. And the policy says always can obtain verbal confirmation via phone number found via the company's phone directory, not a number found any other way, especially not one provided in a form of communication like an email that might be suspect, right? You can't call a person. If the hacker sends you a phone number, you can't confirm using that phone number, right? So use the company directory. And change of wiring instructions for seller proceeds over a certain amount would have to be made in person with a proper seller ID. So again, when there are millions of dollars on the line, you don't just change that number, because someone that said they were that seller called you. By the way, if I scrape off a website and then match it up against public records, I get seller names all day long, right? Oh, this is Joe Smith. I have a cold, so I sound a little funny. Seriously, I mean, it has happened. So this is the kind of thing where if you're changing routing information or establishing routing information inside your company, having a simple procedure, a kind of an offline procedure, makes a lot of sense. Again, if you think things have gone wrong, here's who you tell. So that's a basic policy. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward policy. It's not that long. It can protect against almost every form of wire fraud that I've seen. Don't forget online training. Again, you have to train people on policy. They have to sign off on it. These folks made a really nice video for their employees and for their contractors. And policy without education and compliance management is useless, and insurance companies will look into this if they're asked to pay out millions of dollars. They will ask some basic questions. And, you know, it's about taking reasonable steps. And we all make different decisions in our lives. And again, I'm saying here's a bunch of stuff you can do, but I don't think negatively if you don't do everything. How do I put this? Like, with my home, I think I have reasonably good security. I've got a good front door. I've got good, motion sensors, all the usual stuff. Do I have bars all over my windows? No. Do I have biometric fingerprint to get into? No. You know, I make choices. We all make choices. I'm giving you a bunch of things, saying here are some things you can do. You can do all of them. You can do some of them. You can do whatever you want. If you're the broker, it's your business. You decide how much risk. One of the other things besides monitoring is compliance testing. There are some great tools out there. This one's called Security IQ. There are a bunch of others out there that are free or cheap, where you can send what look like phishing emails into people in your organization. You could see who opened and who clicked through. 23% phished is not uncommon for the first test. And once they realize that someone's watching, they may be a little more careful in the future. But again, there are lots of great tools out there. Phishing, compliance testing. Again, Google it. There's 12 different companies doing great stuff. This one's pretty cheap, which is why I put it on this example. The attack scope is increasing. Okay, I just want to come around. I've told you how to stop what the problem is. I've told you how to stop it. But I want to give you a sense of what's going on. This is one of my buddies named Sam DeBoard. I assure you his real email address is not sam@m4motorcycles.com. He has a somewhat more professional email address at seattlehome.com. He's a very well-known guy. He's on a lot of NAR committees. Great guy. Great broker. Great reputation in the state. So when thousands of agents in Washington state got something with a subject listing offer, they tried to click through. And they were fooled. So, again, Sam's email was not compromised. Okay? But soon escrow accounts were being opened up related to this.
The link at the bottom is essentially tied to the one at the top.
No, this actually went back to Sam. It was someone being super careless. I mean, a hacker being super careless. But thousands of people clicked through, put their credentials in, got malware. They just got hacked. And this happened to thousands and thousands of people on one day, on March 10th, 2017.
So they clicked on the top.
No, there was actually a link in there. I didn't put the whole link. There was a document, and there was a link, and I took out some of the very naughty stuff. But it gives you a sense of what it looks like. Again, it can be super innocuous.
Can they be hacked just by opening the email?
Rarely. Most email clients make it pretty hard to be hacked by just opening the email. But clicking the link, opening a document. But trust me, if you send an agent something that says offer letter, they're going to try to open that thing up. And it could be an infected PDF, an infected Adobe Acrobat document, or an infected Word document, or in many cases it links through to an attachment from Google, and sometimes then it says, oh, put in your Google information to get the document. It's on Google Docs. And people do it all the time. Yes?
As to why or how escrow accounts were being opened related to that.
They ended up.
If gets an offer, they're going to present the offer, the seller decide which one they're going to take.
The hackers took this all the way through faking up buyers, setting up escrow accounts. I mean.
Oh, so the person on the other end actually thought that maybe they corresponded with them. And
Oh yeah, they pretended to be Sam. They found people with buyers. They did. I mean, this was the beginning. This went super long, and this could have resulted in tons of people thinking they were going to end up at the closing table.
And the only way to know that this is fraudulent is
Talk to Sam.
was the wrong thing.
Yep, the only way they would have known is to call Sam's real phone number, which this was, and many people called him, but some people didn't. Again, the hackers were working buyers on the other side. They were working Sam on one side, they were working both sides. They were working sellers, they were working buyers. It was big. And they did it with thousands of people all at once just by, I tell you how easy it is. Go to an IDX website, just grab all the addresses. And this is a simple version. The hacker could have grabbed all the addresses off the website and the contact information for the agent. And imagine every one of you got something, listing offer on, and an address that you were actually working. I mean, this could have been much more sophisticated, but this was just the simple form. And it keeps evolving, right? This is someone on WhatsApp saying, basically prepping the agent to receive something from a bogus email address. Saying, I'm going to send it from my son's email. My son email. Okay, you get the idea though. Again, they're using every single communication form you can imagine. This is not just about email. I want to give you a starting point here. Let me just do a quick time check on this here. Okay, perfect. We have some time yet. I want to talk about information security in general. Just backing off wire fraud here. Wire fraud is super important. It's a good starting place. Again, that document right off my website, and that's CLAREITY.com. Search for wire fraud, and you'll download the document. It's a big, thick document. All that stuff and more. Information security is a big, complicated thing. We are protecting tons of information, right? If you have a copy of a check, for example, that has a name, that has a routing number, ABN routing number, that's enough to set up a bank draw. And when you have that alone is that qualifies what's called breach notification, where if you lose one of those documents with a copy of the check, you're supposed to go through this whole breach notification process to the consumer and who may have been involved. If you lose a laptop that has emails with tons of those things, with the e-faxes coming in with the copies of the checks, whoo, boy, you might have to notify your whole book of business there. There's a lot of pieces. I'm not gonna. I could spend. I usually do a 4.5-hour nightmare class on this for the techies and the brokers and the whole thing. But I'm going to cover just some of the highlights here very quickly. A lot of people are thinking about computer security and information security. When they think information security in their heads, they translate that to computer security. Bad move. Information exists, again, in all the forms, from the physical file on out. And people think about networks and platforms and software, all that kind of stuff, all the techie stuff. But almost every breach I've ever dealt with, and I've dealt with quite a number over the years, I've been doing this for over 20 years, has either dealt with policy and procedure, kind of like we just went over some policy earlier, assessment and remediation, brokerages that didn't look at their risk and then didn't manage improving their risk, contracts, I'm going to have fun with those with you here, physical security, and personnel practices and social engineering, which is when someone tricks you into doing something. Almost every breach has had to do with this, not the bits and bytes. The bits and bytes are important, But I'll show you some examples as we go on here. So I'm going to focus first on the non-technical stuff, given the limited time here. Policies and procedures. I mentioned some of these earlier. Acceptable use policy that describes how people are supposed to use your computers and electronics and networks. Sensitive information. Letting people in your office know, if you're a broker, letting everyone know, here's the sensitive information that you handle, and here's how you have to manage it. This can be emailed, this can't. This can be discussed on the phone, this can't. This can be mailed, this can't. This has to be couriered, etc. Right? What is it? How is it handled? Passwords. We talked about that already. Antivirus policy. You have to use it. BYOD, the bring your own device policy. Again, if you have your own, if all your agents have their own stuff, here's how it needs to be configured, and here's who's there to help them from a brokerage perspective. And then you'll have more technical ones. Workstations, servers, firewalls, wireless, secure coding if you have software development, logs and backups, account management, all this super techie stuff. But someone in the organization probably needs a policy and procedure to make sure they're doing it the right way. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, it's not enough to draft policies. There's a whole life cycle, including education, deployment, monitoring. And again, this all seems like really crazy over the top, especially if you're an independent agent, or a very small brokerage. But the small organizations have just about as much risk as the big ones. Not as many records, but same risks. And again, if you ever try to get paid out on insurance or anything, they're going to ask for your policies, they're going to ask for your procedures, they're going to make sure you're doing the right thing. Policies and procedures, again, I mentioned are for your employees, and then you have contracts. Now, you might have contracts with your agents, but you also have contracts with software companies. Okay? And I like to say that just like with properties, you get the security that you contract for, right? So just like, if the conveyance clause is not there, right, to say that this thing's going to be in the house, may not be in the house when the buyer shows up. It's just like same thing with security. So I looked at the top 50 associations, multiple listing services, and brokerages. So just stick to the blue lines, the broker for now. 30% of the ones I looked at, of these big companies, didn't have basic patches on their servers, running well-known insecure software where their email, their hacked, how do I put this? Their whole infrastructure could have been hacked in a heartbeat. 30% of our brokerages, and those are the ones that have the resources to do it right. That's scary, right? Again, how do we deal with this? Contracts. So often in our contracts, what it'll say is something like this. Vendor will take reasonable care to protect the confidentiality of your data. Lawyers love reasonable care. I like to say because they get paid to litigate what it means when it's too late. Sorry, lawyers. That's a lawyer. I can say that now. Again, reasonable care can't be audited. So I look to see that they have limits on the use of confidentiality of the information that you're providing them, right? Whether it's email or transaction management or MLS software or anything. Authentication, make sure that there's the strong authentication in there. Data transmission, to make sure that they're not sending your information over the wire unencrypted. Data location and storage. Where's your transaction management system data being stored? In the US, in an encrypted database, or not? When is it? How long is it retained? You all have laws in the state of California about how long you're supposed to keep certain kinds of information, right? And I'm not talking real estate commission kind of regulation. I'm talking just business law. You have real estate commission says you have to keep it this long, and business law says you have to destroy it within this period of time if it's not in use and it's not subject of a lawsuit, and there's a bunch of other stuff in there. At the heart of it, let's just say you have a retention law in the books and you're using some transaction management system. If you don't have in your contract that they have a process for getting rid of this information at the right time, who's on the hook for it? You, right? Software security, what standards do they meet for software security? And again, and let's say you have a virtual office website. You have in your MLS rules, virtual office websites, and it says you have to have anti-screen scraping software in there, so bad guys can't come and just harvest the data off your site like I was mentioning earlier. Well, who's responsible for that? Well, the MLS has a rule for you, and you have a software company. Did that obligation ever get passed on to the software company, and how? Again, guess who's left in the middle hanging if you don't have it in your contract? It's your problem. By the way, I've had folks that have not had anti-scraping, and then what happens? The MLS says you have to do it, and the vendor says, well, it'll cost you this much extra. Right? Wasn't in the contract. If you expect your vendor has staff that are security trained, that they background check their developers, that they document their software test, security testing, that they do, that they have security audits once in a while, that they're going to keep things patched, I mean, et cetera, better be in your contract. Again, contracts is something that you all know real well because you're in real estate, but a lot of people, when it comes to technology, they just kind of think, well, that's geek stuff. No, it's business and it's contracts. So, and if you're having software developed for you custom, like a custom website, I always put in there that it wouldn't be accepted until all security issues have been resolved, and that acceptance is tied to payment. And if there are unresolved issues, like they don't patch their servers or other things, and you find out about it, and they don't fix it, it's a breach of contract, and you can get out. Right? Testing, monitor, enforcement, work with an attorney, spell it all out. I know it's a lot of technical detail, but I'm just saying, this scares the pants off me. And I know why it's happening. It's happening because people don't put the requirements in ink, and then people do what developers do what they do. Now I want to get to something completely non-technical, and I'll show you why. Physical security. I have hundreds of these, and they all read about the same. Private records turned up in dumpster. Personal addresses, phone numbers, copies of private checks are among the documents. Real estate records found in dumpster. Files of personal information discovered by dumpster. London Property says dumping files a mistake. Stolen PC holds personal data on hundreds. Personal information discovered in dumpster. And now for the Pulitzer Prize. The paper trail stretched for blocks, billowing in the cold breeze on Columbus Avenue. It wasn't litter, but bits and pieces of people's lives. I think that reporter's just, they were going for the Oscar. No, they're going for the Pulitzer there. This is real stuff. I mean, I've got hundreds of these. Physical security. Forget the bits and bytes for a minute. I mean, if you take nothing away from today, other than some of the wire fraud stuff and something else, this is the thing to take away. Physical security is where the rubber meets the road in real estate. Other than the wire fraud, physical security is where most of the breaches happen. And what I look for, this is kind of what I'm looking for. If I'm coming in doing an audit, but you can self-audit, this is what I look for. I look for solid core exterior doors, not glass. And if there's glass, I look for motion sensors and glass break sensors. I look for sealed or limited opening windows. Big wide open window, I mean, great for cooling pies and all, but not good for security. I look for an alarm system that's not turned off and doors not unlocked until several employees are present. I look for individual alarm codes, not the master one that no one knows who they used it. I look for in a bigger office, I look for webcams. They're cheap as anything, and you can stream. They take snapshots when they detect motion and send the image off-site. Well, I once went to a place that had like a old school like VCR tape, and like, guess the VCR turned up in the pawn shop the very next day. Sans the tape. Again, stream. You got to, use the modern webcams, and vendors supervised while they're on site. So that's like the building level, right? If I come in to look in an office building, I don't want to see that. That's a pretty big open door. Went through that open door, up an open staircase into a hallway, into a bathroom, over a drop ceiling, into a data center. Seriously. I mean, and hackers do this all the time. Ideally, and I know you're not going to redesign your office, but in the ideal world, I like to see separated employee areas and visitor areas. Okay? Ideally, the wall should go up to the physical ceiling, not a drop ceiling, between those areas. I look ideally, again, for an electronic badge into employee areas, especially where you have sensitive information stored. Computers, label them and cable them. Lock them down to the desk. Lock those cases down. Trust me, I've got calls, clients, someone came in, they cut the power, they came in, they put everything in a shopping cart and wheeled it right out. And if they take a couple of minutes per computer to try to snap those lines or get through those bolts on the desk, would have been a different situation. Cross-cut shredders, know when to use them. And this is probably the most important thing on the slide, probably in the whole deck. Do not leave sensitive information on desks or unlocked filing cabinets unattended. I don't care if it's a home office and it's in the den, or if it's in a broker office, or whatever. This is the one. You don't leave it in your car, as our friends the police just mentioned. You don't leave it in the den where your kids' friends find it. Right? Any of that. Lock it up. Secure printers and fax machines receiving sensitive information. If they're out there with the receptionist, and the receptionist at lunch, you might have sensitive documents piling up right there in the public, pretty much. And dispose of them securely. I can't dive into this too much, but get those hard drives out and smash them with until they sound like a maraca. Because today's modern printers and fax machines and multifunction whatevers, they got hard drives in them. I'm going to come back to that a little later. But trust me, I can pretty much, most printers are completely hackable to get older documents out of them. Fax machines, copiers, all that, same thing. Lock key offices, right? HR office, any other office, your main broker office, keep it locked. And if you've got a place with the filing cabinets, lock the filing cabinets and lock the office around the filing cabinets. Okay? Now, if you have employee areas, make sure you don't see things like this. Hey, they got a cool badge system and a traffic cone holding the door open. Ooh, they got a cool number lock. I don't like those, by the way, because they're easy to shoulder surf. Oh, they got a block of wood, 10-cent block of wood. Oh, keeping that door open. Oh, here's a sign on an unlocked door that says employees only with the servers and everything in there. Employees only says good stuff in here. Yep, here's another door that's been propped open. They've got an electronic badge system. You can see the little light. And then they pop the door open. So they're not really using it. Label it and cable it. Again, this is a little case that you can buy to put around a iPad. And it's just cabled down to the desk. And a little laptop cable for the laptop. All the time, unlocked file cabinets. Get locking filing cabinets, especially in a home office. Especially in a home office. And lock those drawers. Don't leave the thumb drives out, the portable hard drives out, the physical stacks, anything that has sensitive information on it. So here's what we're doing. I know this is a little dry, and it's a long day. You've had a long day here. We're creating boxes and boxes, or what we call in the technical parlance, defense in depth. Okay? So, building security, if they breach that, you have an outer office security, employee area security, HR office security, HR file cabinet, HR file, right? If someone forgets to lock, the HR person forgets to lock the filing cabinet, but they lock the HR office, it's okay, right? If HR office is unlocked, well, but there's a separate employee area. The only people going to be getting in there is employees and maybe the cleaning crew. Point is, the more layers you have, the better. And those things are bolstered with webcams, entrance access controls, shredders, alarm systems. Physical security. I cannot pound that one enough. And even if you just have a home office, even if you only have one layer, that locked filing cabinet is better than nothing, right? Every little thing. So, not much time left at all. We'll stand around 2:30. I'm going to plow through just a couple of little things that may be a little too detailed, but I just want to give you a little sense of some other things. Backups. The most important thing you can do for security, this doesn't stop a breach, but if something were to happen, if you got ransomware on your computers, someone messing with your files, having good backups is critical. I like to have some that are every weekly. They go off-site every day, every month, every year. I've got a multiple system. Even on my personal laptop, I've got a cloud system that backs it up constantly, called Carbonite. And then I've got every week, I put it up to different hard drives that are stored in my media safe at home. And then every year, I take all the different files that are new and I put them on a DVD. Whether the cloud backups are fine, but if you ever have to restore even just one computer from them, it can take you days. So keep that in mind. That's why I have a multiple stage system that I use personally. If it's not tested, it's not backup. If you can't pretend that the office has been on fire, and if you can't take your backup and basically be up and running somewhere else, it's not backup. So again, sooner or later, something's gonna get hacked. Being able to recover, having good backups, and being able to use them effectively, and knowing that you can, that, my friends, is peace of mind. Networking. Again, I'm not going to dive into anything too much because minutes is spare, and then I can answer some questions. If you have a network in your office, probably needs a professional to set it up. If I don't see professionals, I either see no firewall, or a faux firewall, or a firewall with poor rules, or a firewall being used for the perimeter only. And by firewall, I don't mean it's not just a bad movie with Harrison Ford. The firewall is your network traffic cop that says this is legitimate, and this is bogus traffic, this is bogus network use. It's stopping it where it needs to be stopped. Again, if you don't have a firewall in your office, and you have people coming in from the public coming in and plugging in or getting on your wireless with their nasty virus-laden computers, if you don't have a firewall in the way between that and your accounting server, you're taking your life in your hands. Wireless, change the router access password, keep those things updated. They need patched just like anything else. Use that encryption. And ideally, if you have a big office, put terms of use on it, just like the coffee shops do, everyone else does it. All other small businesses do it. You can do it too. I rarely see brokerage offices do it. Do it. Again, lock down those printers, fax machines, and copiers. And again, if you don't have it firewalled, there's tons of tools that I can download off the internet. PRET, PTFT, and BFE. I could hack just about any printer, grab old documents out of them. If you don't have them firewalled away from Joe Public and the wireless, it's bad. They all have memory on them. They all have memory. Unless you've got a really big one, the really big, fancy, big industrial copiers, those have both encryption settings and retention settings. So some of those really big ones, you can set it to encrypt the documents so they're hard to get out, and you can set it to automatically get rid of them after 24 hours. Otherwise, they all, unless you have a really old, like, LaserJet 3 from the early 90s, they have hard drives in them now. Especially these big multifunction ones, especially ones that scan and do all the stuff. Some have regular memory, some have full-on hard drives. They're just about all hackable in one way or another. They're just they scare the pants off me. Phones and voice over IP systems, physical security. If I can open up a closet in your office and get access there, game's over. Got to change the factory defaults on those things, especially those voice over IP system and teleconference systems. Firewall them off from Joe Visitor especially, and patch them. This is a very popular brand of voice over IP system of the Avaya, and it's got pages and pages of hacks, including one at the beginning of the year. If you don't keep them patched, think, oh, it's the patch, it's a phone. It's like, no, the modern phone systems, they're computers. Can't get into this, but if you have geeks in your organizations, the military at DISA.mil, they've got checklists and checklists and checklists for how to secure PCs, Macs, Linux, web servers, database servers. If you have some geeks that want to really get into securing stuff, use the military checklists. Otherwise, if you have a PC, there are free tools like Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer. You can download it off Microsoft.com. It's a one-button click. You see the problems. You click the link, how to correct this, and it gives you instructions that are vaguely meant for mortals. But better than nothing, better than no you have a problem, try to get help with it. Oh, it's all there. Yep. And I can also give PDF of this presentation, so you can get at it from your association here. Again, free tools are out there. Keeping stuff patched is harder than it might seem. There are lots of different tools out there: Secunia, PSI, SolarWinds, lots of other tools that watch for out of compliance software. And some of them automated patch, some of them patch automatically, some of them you have to manually intercede. I happen to use a Secunia one because it's free. It says, oh, every once in a while it just pops up an alert. Whoa, you have to download Flash, Shockwave, VLC, Skype. Oh, your Firefox is out of date. Oh, old version of Java. And some of these things auto-update on your computers, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes they try and fail. And this pops up alerts all the time. Antivirus. I'm going to go 5 minutes over. Antivirus. Most PC antivirus is moderately affected. I mean, all of it can be evaded by a dedicated hacker. All the current generation stuff is about the same effectiveness. I mean, they kind of, year over year, sometimes one's in the lead, depending who's measuring. But they're all about the same. If you run a company, use a corporate edition. There's next generation antivirus out there that's being developed. Very cool stuff, and I have friends working on it. But boy, is it spendy. I mean, like, I can't afford it. If you already got a PC, if you got Macs, don't be thinking you can't get a virus, because there's crime software being sold how to compromise the Macs. Okay, and we've seen many cases where hundreds of thousands of Macs were infected. And again, there's a lot of antivirus out there for your Macs, and people think, I have a Mac, I'll never get a virus. More and more, it's happening. Don't forget Android. There's very good antivirus out there for the Android: Avast, AVG, McAfee, Norton, all the usual ones, right? Don't forget that. Sorry, iPhone, Apple doesn't play well with others. I wish I could say better, but they don't. So I could dive into any one of these topics for forever. I mean, like I said, I sometimes spend days and days with clients going over securing all our systems, and it takes days, and it's painful. But I want to give you a quick run through, and especially if all you remember is some of the wire fraud stuff. If you go to clarity.com/security, I've got tons of articles on a lot of these topics on there, and the wire fraud document as well. If you get nothing from today but the wire fraud thing and lock up the sensitive stuff, I mean, that one thing alone would stop so many breaches in our industry. As you can tell, I get a little passionate about this stuff. I get a little strident at times. I'm sorry about that. But frankly, I get too many calls. I don't want to get those calls that things have gone wrong. I would rather things go right. I would rather this whole area, this whole area of expertise not be needed. And, how do I put this? Please take reasonable steps. Now, if there's a question I didn't have time to answer, because again, we could spend another hour getting into questions and Q&A. And what I also find is when it comes to this kind of security, people don't want to ask these questions in front of their peers a lot. Just email me. I got my email address there. You spent some time with me. You put an investment in, and I'll put a little investment with you. If you have a question I can just pop an answer off to, or give you an answer, a resource, send you a link. No big deal, right? I'm happy to answer an email, get you what you need. And that way you don't have to ask about your very specific, sensitive, private stuff in a public forum. So again, I'm very responsive. Someone sent me an email half an hour before I went on here, and I answered it right then and there. So you might see me fiddling with my computer. That was someone from a previous session asking a question. I really don't mind. It doesn't take a lot of my time. But I'm always happy to hear from you. So again, thank you so much. I hope I can make a difference in you securing your business. Thank you. Does anyone have something they really want to ask, though? Well, if you do, use a VPN software.
portable wireless router.